But it really, and so all kids have this boatload of emotional backlog that they need, that inner child needs help. They need to be reparented by us, the adult, so that they feel like they're an accepted, safe, and worthy part of our life. But, and that might sound like a lot of work and really scary, but all everything that you need to be successful, to make your life working in a manner of ease rather than effort, comes from that inner healing, because you access all of who you are. It's an analogy that I use. I'll try and shorten it and see if it still works. You're driving through life, and you've got your foot on the gas pedal of life, moving forward, and you're doing as well as you're doing. And trust me, the people who come to me are doing extremely well. But it doesn't take much for them to recognize that they've also got their foot on the brake of life, and that here they are with 60% of their energy on the gas pedal and 40% on the brake, and it's creating that tension and struggle in their life. And I mean, I always have to say, it's like, well, look how well you've done, running this race of life with one leg tied behind your back. Imagine if we undo that leg, you're going to do amazingly well.
Well, welcome to the Casual Temple. This week, we have the wonderful opportunity to chat with transformative coach, Dr. Ron Stotts, who is a 3-time bestselling author with a PhD in psychology and is a doctor of chiropractic medicine. His explorations have taken him to the depths of ancient wisdom and up to the most current developments in psychological and neurological studies. Today, we will discuss how Dr. Stotts guides individuals towards being authentic and mindful leaders to help create a more conscious and caring world. It's so great to chat about all the important work you're doing on the Casual Temple. Thanks, Ron.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining. We're just going to kind of start at wherever you consider the beginning of your path to kind of give us a little insight to you as a person. So wherever you feel is the best place to start. Happy to hear.
All right. Yeah, it really started early. I remember getting a little red ribbon for memorizing the 23rd Psalm first. And so, and that was like, oh, I had spiritual interests, I had religious interests. And, by 12, I started exploring other churches and synagogues and things, because I just wanted to see what other, religions and things were about. And by my mid-late teens, I was kind of more into nature, as I figured that was kind of the best thing God had created on the planet, so I might as well just sit in the middle of it and see what I could learn. And I did learn a great deal. I started playing with breath, not really knowing that I was learning anything, but I'd just could hold my breath for about 3 minutes. So I'd go into the lake in the summer and swim with the fish. But what I was really enjoyed was these moments of silence, and just the expansiveness that, I remember not telling my friends what I was doing, because it would have been very strange. But I was very comfortable with it. And, somehow that, and even though I was somewhat of a jock in many ways, I had this other secret side of me that I was always nourishing and enjoying. And I really, I think it was, I went in the Marine Corps in 1967, which was like the worst thing I could have possibly done, but it turned out to be the best thing that I could have ever done. Because in the middle of it, I realized, oh my God, everything that I've ever been taught is going to move me to a position of killing or being killed, which I'm not, I'm not really looking to do. And so I had to really just cut off everything. And I had a great childhood, but I just went through a period where I cut off myself from everything that I'd ever learned, because I didn't feel I could trust those influences. It's like, well, who am I? What are my beliefs? What are the rules that I can live by that are in alignment with how I want to live, who I want to be? And so I really, that's of course meditation started coming in. I didn't know what I was doing again at the time, but sitting quietly and breathing became, what I was doing a lot of. And the Vietnam, that experience in the Marine Corps was so difficult that when I got out, I had a chemical imbalance. Was, I'd lost my custody of my two sons. I got a divorce, and my life was just an absolute mess. And I didn't, it went from this kind of everything is great life to this mess where I didn't know what to do. And I finally decided to commit suicide after a couple of years because of all the highs and lows and the chemical imbalances and that kind of thing from all the trauma that I'd been in. I'd lost about 52 close friends in that war. So it was, of course, I didn't know how to deal with that. And I was very good at shoving things down, as most of us are. And so, I went out in the woods, which is kind of my home turf, and decided after about 3 days that, committing suicide was the best route for me to go. And I had a very nice size hunting knife that I'd been given when I was 12. And I, early the next morning, sitting against a big rock, just took that hunting knife and moved it towards my heart. And I was a very strong, big young man, capable of doing that without, really hesitation. And somewhere, as my arm moved around, and just as the point was entering my skin, I dissolved in this white ball of light. And, this is not familiar territory for me. I lost any sense of my body and the world around me. And I was just bathed in this perfection. I was just bathed in this oneness and knowing, understanding the oneness and recognizing the value and the purpose of life. Not that I knew exactly who I was supposed to be or do, but just the deep, deep knowing of that. And I have no idea how long that timeless experience lasted, but when I came out, that knife was, 20 feet away somewhere. I'd somehow thrown it. But I came out with this really, what was that? What the heck was that? And so I just literally, I went up, we had a small cabin, and I'm talking about outhouse, wood stove type of cabin on an island up north. And I spent a great deal of time there just trying to, reading the Bible, reading other philosophies, anything I could find at the time. And also, it was a winter experience. And so I was just, spent a lot of time walking, and it was very quiet. And I found myself breathing. I found myself, my mind getting quieter. I started reconnecting with myself. And that's really where my journey began. And that's, I consider that a very difficult start, but it also pushed me right into, letting go of everything and becoming one with everything. So that really became like, okay, how do I do that anytime I want? And that was my life. That's where I got to as I meditated 30,000 some hours and got to a place where I could move into that silence, that oneness and that connection whenever I wanted. And so then I started looking at, well, how do I make this applicable in the world? And that's where leadership came in, because I was very good. I had centers in Switzerland, and I could move people into the highest states of consciousness. But I saw, to create a more conscious and caring world, I wanted to, the best thing I could offer was to help people move into more conscious and higher level leadership abilities, so that they're affecting large numbers. So I work with people that they then affect thousands of people. And so it allows me to extend what I'm doing in a dramatic way or fulfilling way.
Wow. That is, yeah, an amazing story. And I'm happy you're here. I'm happy that white light came down, and I'm so happy about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it seemed like it was a place, yeah, he had a lot going on at that time. So for sure. So, and I'm glad meditation was there for you. So that's
Yes.
wonderful.
Glad I discovered that.
Yeah.
Good.
So kind of speaking on that, did you have sort of support in your, or guidance in your meditation practice, like any specific either teachers or methods that you really liked?
Not until later. I mean,
Mm,
it sounds like I knew what I was doing, but the truth is I didn't even know the word meditation. So
yeah, yeah.
was sitting in silence and doing things, and so, or experiencing things. But I finally, yeah, I met as the universe does, I was teaching at the time at college level, and I moved to Laguna to teach at a couple of community colleges down in Southern California. And of course, there was a little room up in the back of the house that I was renting. And I had a nice spot, but he had this little tiny room that he lived in. And so I'd see him go past as he was leaving and coming and going. And interesting guy. And I started talking to him. We got to know each other, and he belonged to a spiritual community. And so I started going with him to this community and discovered what meditation was. It was a Hindu-oriented meditation. So I spent about 10 years deeply involved in the Hindu traditions and learning to meditate. And I discovered Buddha and started moving into that direction for 20, 30 years. And yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. That's such a cool experience to have all that meditation in your back pocket because that's pretty fantastic.
I'd highly recommend it to anyone.
Yes, for sure. I do have a strange question though, because I was thinking about this. You said it came naturally to you, so you kind of just knew how to meditate. Um, do
Yeah.
you happen to think it was like you were meditating in past lives or something like that? Like that's super woo, but like,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a worthy consideration, especially considering other considerations that I've had since. But I also think, well, and even that experience, that near-death experience that
mm,
I had,
yeah.
I remember kind of, somewhat jokingly before went to thrust that knife, I kind of said, God, if you have anything to say, this would be a good moment to say it. It's like, heads up. And and of course, there was nothing but the morning silence in the middle of the woods, and yet I can't help but feel that I got a direct response from the universe. I don't, back when I was a kid, there was this God in a chair and, all of that old image of reality. And of course, at this point, I just feel like the entire existence, all of multiverse and everything that we were somewhat aware of or dissolved into and expanded ourselves into is really nothing but consciousness. So consciousness is everything. It's the expression of everything. It's the result of everything that's expressed. And so I finally slowly come back to using the word God, but it's for that rather than any separateness at all. And because
Yeah.
I know there is no separateness. So,
Yeah.
so your question, which I completely forgot now, is what?
Well, I think you answered it beautifully. I was asking if
Okay.
you felt like it was sort of a past life thing, but it sounds like it just your time in nature and then your experience was really
Yeah.
you just naturally could meditate. You were just like, I just know how to do it. It's kind
Yeah,
of what I
and
heard.
I mean, even as a child, 10, 11, when I would train myself to breathe and hold my breath and that type of thing.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, breathing now is my teacher, it's my trusted friend. It's what guides me into and through any level of consciousness. And so, breathing is really the key to conscious living. It's just it brings you into and allows you to heal and expand into any level of consciousness. So, so yeah.
Yeah. I've heard in some of the practices and things I've done, it's like you're literally breathing in like spirit and energy. Like, and so much of us, we only breathe like,
Yeah.
not every, we don't pull in
Big part
all
of
the
my
breath.
work, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, gotta bring it all in.
Yeah. Well, it's our connection. I mean, you're
Yeah.
breathing the oxygen that's taken up by the plants and the trees, and they bleed, well, you breathe out carbon dioxide, and they take that up, and we
Hmm.
breathe in the oxygen that they release. So then breathing literally connects you just in a natural nature sort of experience to the oneness. And but it also, you can learn to use it as an elevator, quite literally, to move you into any state of consciousness you want to move into, to to breathing, to being breathed, to being, to becoming the breath, to dissolving in the universe and becoming one with everything. The breath is your vehicle. It really is. And so,
Oh, beautiful.
big fan.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, beautifully explained. Thank you.
Thanks.
So you did touch on sort of the leadership sort of things you were doing in Switzerland.
Well, I still do those now. I'm a transformational executive coach.
Oh,
My intention is to create a more conscious and caring world. I mean, I've got kids, grandkids, and such, and so I'm very aware that there's going to be people on this planet, after I'm gone, and I want to make sure that I'm leaving it in the best condition that I can, not only just for them, of course, but for everybody. And everybody else, or a lot of other people, seem to be very clear that they'd like to destroy the planet. So if I can create the leaders who can consciously bring us into a more supportive path, and
mhm.
which I am doing, and I am successful at that, and I'm having a great time doing it, and don't plan on stopping until I'm gone, then yeah, that's worth doing.
Can you tell us what a conscious and authentic leader looks like, if like an example of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when people come to me, the biggest challenge I see in leadership today is that they're looking outside of themselves for what they can only be found within. And so they come in and they have, they want to know how to fix their company or fix their relationship with their employees or get the employees to do what they want and be like they want them to be. And, because they're running the show with their ego. Their ego is just satiating and affecting everybody in their organization. And they don't seem to be aware of that at all. And they don't recognize that all the challenges they're having are really due to unhealed aspects of themselves. So it doesn't take me more than a few sentences to get them to recognize, oh, this is not an outside problem, it's an inside thing. And that's when they get interested in working with me. And I happen to be very good at taking people down very deeply within themselves. I had a mentor, I don't know whether you know who he is, Joseph Campbell. Yeah, oh, okay, good. Yeah, so Joseph and I were quite close, and he talked about that cave that you fear to enter within, that you have to go to discover the treasure that you seek. And so that, then he also was talking about the hero's journey. And to me, the hero's journey is really healing. You're going into that cave and healing everything that's in that cave, because a child, they come into the world completely helpless and they want unconditional love more than anything else, because that gives them the sense of safety and that they'll be taken care of and survive. And so they'll do whatever they need to do to get that love. They'll become whoever they need to be. What emotions should I show? What should I hide? What aspects of myself should I tuck away into that cave so that nobody knows about them? And who do I need to be accepted and loved? And early on they recognize they're not going to get the unconditional love that they wanted. So it's more about how much can I get just, to get by until maybe I can do something later. But so I help them, a lot of times you probably hear it, people feel like they're not enough or they're not living up to their full potential. Well, the truth is they're not enough. That's always startling for them. And then I add, you're just not accessing enough from within yourself. It's not like you need more from outside. You need some trick or special, gemstone or whatever one might look for. It's really within yourself. And so I take people and I guide people on that inner journey where they become more self-aware. They recognize, oh, if I, they have beliefs like if I love myself unconditionally, others won't like me. And then I say, well, now from a little child's perspective, what might happen? They realize, oh, I'll be alone. And oh, well, if I love myself unconditionally, I'll die. That's a belief that so far everybody that I've ever worked with, and that's thousands of people, have that belief. or if I'm in my power, or what control is. Most people's definition of control is really, once they step back and understand it, a definition for being out of control. So there is
Mm,
integrity with an old belief system, but that old belief system's completely out of sync with who and what they want to be now. And so as they acknowledge, express, and heal that emotional backlog that they needed to shove away to be accepted as a child, then they begin to access more of who and what they are. They become whole, they become authentic, they become confident, they become a person that other people can trust, because you're more vulnerable and safer to be around, because you're more compassionate and empathetic, and you're looking at, how do I bring out the best in others? I haven't seen anybody go through this work, and I've had some pretty scary people coming into it, but like, okay. But literally, as people go through this work, they naturally are looking for, how do I connect and serve and support others more fully? How do I
mm,
make this a better world? How do I make my organization better? How do I make my family better? And that transformation, that relationship with themselves in being transformed to one of being more self-accepting and loving, then is reflected in their relationship with others. And they become more, empathetic, cooperative, collaborative, loving, and supportive for everybody.
oh, that's great. So, because I think in all of our lives, we're called to be leaders at some point,
And
right?
I would
At some
agree.
point in
Yeah.
our lives. So do you tend to work with, I think you do tend to work with sort of like leaders of companies. Do you also work with folks in other capacities?
Well, when I started off this, my publisher kind of said, "Oh, you have to know who you're,"
Right.
I was like, "Well, okay."
Yeah.
I've been doing, work with everybody and doing fine, but okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what got me into the leadership thing. But what I found was, I don't have to find these top level leaders and then transform them into being these conscious leaders. Anybody can become a conscious leader within about a year. It might take them longer to become the highest level, that 1% that I love to take people to, because they all of a sudden, there's so much ease and graciousness in their life. But everybody, once they've healed their past, once they've got that foundation to build their life on, once they, really go through, it's about a 9-month process, it seems to take, for people to really, it's that gestation period, is that the right word? That, sorry, I'm not familiar with the thing,
Yeah.
but, but, it takes that time, and when I'm working with people, I see them kind of practicing, because old issues are still coming up, but it's like, oh, here's how and rather than being challenged and quit breathing, here's how you breathe and see the opportunity within any situation, every situation. It's so exciting, because all of a sudden, literally, if they find themselves not breathing fully, if they find themselves feeling something emotionally that they're uncomfortable with, rather than reacting and shutting down and hiding, they breathe into that. They see it as a gift. They see it, it's like, well, what's the opportunity? What part of me is ready to be healed now? What what aspect of myself am I going to be able to access, so that I can
Mm,
even expand further into my life, into my work, into my service, into my love. So
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, such important work for people. Oh,
it's the
oh
most
my
important work
gosh.
one can do, and I'm so thrilled to be in the middle of it.
Yes. Oh, and yeah, I am so happy you do have sort of a focus on leaders of companies, because, I'm sure, as you know, everybody has their stories
Yeah.
of unconscious leaders.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so I think that's so wonderful.
yeah.
Um, so
And that,
speaking on, oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
No.
Well, I was just going to say, in that unconscious leader, I saw it in spiritual teachers. I
Oh,
saw it in
yes,
politicians, in business. I saw it across the board. And
that's
so it's
true.
not isolated to any one aspect of life. So
Oh,
yeah,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Scream that from the rooftops. It's so true.
yeah.
Um, but how can we, like, even, um even as somebody either in a workplace or in a nonprofit or in a neighborhood or whoever, how can we all be more mindful, just, together, even if we're not leading at that point?
We're not going to sing Kumbaya, are we?
We could, yeah.
I have. No,
Right. Me
but
too. Yeah.
yeah, it's really a matter of I so appreciate, and yet it's difficult for me to appreciate that people are scared to death to look within themselves and become more self-aware. They are scared to death of looking at that emotional backlog that, and it's like, that there's that little girl, there's that little boy in there that when you were growing up, it had an emotional experience that it didn't know how to process, and nobody there was there to help it. And so it said, well, okay, I better shove this down in my inner cave so that I don't have to deal with that, and nobody will see that I'm weird or different. And that happens repeatedly through our life. I mean, I belong to a family where, or in an age too, where fear, I don't remember feeling fear as a child. I really don't. That doesn't mean I didn't feel a lot of fear, but
Yeah.
it was so unacceptable that that just wouldn't have been an option for me to bring up and do anything with or process at all, or even let myself be aware of it. But I also ironically lived in a family where anger was not acceptable. And
Mm,
so, it's like, well, when a child doesn't get what they want, they get angry. And that can
yeah.
be a little thing or a big thing, and if I want unconditional love more than anything, and I'm not getting that because my parents don't know how to love themselves unconditionally, then I'm going to be angry, but I can't do anything with that. So I've got to hide that anger. I've got to hide that hurt that maybe they can't love me the way I want. I'm going to hide my fear that maybe did something wrong. I'm not good enough. My shame that maybe I'm not worthy of getting that love. If I can't get that unconditional love from my parents, well, where else would I get it? Who else would be willing to give it to me? Fortunately, I found my wife, but
That's wonderful.
but it really, and so all kids have this boatload of emotional backlog that they need, that inner child needs help. They need to be reparented by us, the adult, so that they feel like they're an accepted, safe, and worthy part of our life. But and that might sound like a lot of work and really scary, but everything that you need to be successful, to make your life working in a manner of ease rather than effort, comes from that inner healing, because you access all of who you are. It's an analogy that I use. I'll try and shorten it and see if it still works. You're driving through life and you've got your foot on the gas pedal of life moving forward, and you're doing as well as you're doing. And trust me, the people who come to me are doing extremely well. But it doesn't take much for them to recognize that they've also got their foot on the brake of life, and that here they are with 60% of their energy on the gas pedal and 40% on the brake, and it's creating that tension and struggle in their life. And I mean, I always have to say, it's like, well, look how well you've done, running this race of life with one leg tied behind your back. Imagine if we undo that leg, you're going to do amazingly well, and they do. It's
Yeah.
incredible how well they do. Yeah. And so, yeah, people don't understand that all you're doing as you do that inner healing, all you're doing is becoming more self-aware. All you're doing is accessing more of who and what you are so that you can become a complete, authentic, capable, comfortable, confident human being.
Yeah.
And, and yeah, it's a little scary in the very beginning, but it doesn't take long before we're on this adventure, and it's like, oh man, where did I get that idea? And let's breathe into this and let's check that out. And everybody gets excited because they're knowing who they are. They're going, oh, well, that's why. Oh, well, that's the reason. And they also see that those are things that they can heal and let go of now, and become that person who, with ease and ability, can not only take care of themselves, but others. And that's, running their organizations, they affect, huge numbers of people.
Yeah, so it sounds like, yeah, the scary part is sort of realizing that maybe you've been, I don't know, living somebody like a life that was put on you, like,
That's
like you,
exactly what you're doing. That's a
yeah.
good way to say it. Yeah.
And so now you're like, oh, like, I want to be who I am, wholly, whole being, and
Yeah.
not, so that's scary because then you're like, well, if I am not the person I was, do I not have unconditional love? Do the people around me, will they
Right.
still love me? Yeah, that's
So
hard.
the thing that I've actually discovered is, I mean, my parents were great people. They really were, and it took me most of my life to heal from that. But I, but the truth is, they were kids. I
Yeah,
mean, Dad was coming home from World War II. My mom had lived a really difficult childhood. They didn't, love myself unconditionally. What are you even talking about? You
right,
know?
exactly.
And you're mad at me for not loving you unconditionally, and so they wouldn't have even had a clue of what I was talking about. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, when I had my kids, in the early stages, I was pretty much in the same department. I was just surviving and trying to make it through. And fortunately, my older son and I have spent a lot of time out in nature, as we were adults, and so he was a much better parent than I was. You know? and and his kids are actually much better parents than he was. So
oh,
yeah, so it's fun to watch people. I'm godfather of a particular several kids there in a family, and I worked with the mom and dad when they were just getting married. They were probably, in their early 20s, earliest 20s, and it's so great to see how having done the inner work and continued to grow, of course, and learn, but how amazing their kids are, because they aren't
right.
coming into the world with that a big, you know, emotional backlog, that inner cave stuffed with denial and unacceptance of themselves. It's almost like it's like a hoarder. We literally, that's what I'm helping people do, is I'm helping them start going, okay, well, can we get rid of this one t-shirt or this one piece of paper? Like, well, my life depends on having that one. And
Right.
so, I mean, if you know that syndrome at all.
Yeah.
But as they start to let go, just as in a hoarder situation, they get to a point where, yeah, let's bring this team in and just dump everything into the dumpster. Let's get rid of it all because I don't need any of it. And then they can redecorate and decide what their life's going to look like. And
Mm,
that's really what we're capable of doing. And we're capable of doing it within a couple of months. That's all it takes. I've had maybe three people who had lives that none of us would want to have lived,
mm,
childhoods that nobody would have planned to live, who didn't really get on top of things within a couple of months. That doesn't mean you aren't continuing to grow and evolve, but it means you have the tools and the methods and the confidence and the abilities to handle things as they come up, so that you know that's a cool thing.
yeah, it is a cool thing. So is this so you mentioned a lot of breath work, you even sort of mentioned breathing into success. What does that look like? Sort of the process of that a little bit.
I keep, I spent my entire life in this personal journey, so I know a lot of different tools, but I've really narrowed them down to about a half dozen tools that I use. And one of them is the variations on the breathing. But it's really uh, when people, as they go through life, if they just notice when they're not breathing, which is a lot of the time,
Yeah.
then that's your indicator that there's something going on. There's something ready to be healed. So every time you're feeling an emotion, that's just an indicator that you've pushed a button, and that means something's ready to be healed, because otherwise you wouldn't, you'd be numb to it. And so every time you're feeling like you're struggling, just, oh, there's another part that's ready to be healed. but you learn to breathe into it, and you learn to open to it. And you learn to open your heart. You learn to open your mind, and literally neurologically, you know, it sounds a little drastic, but I'm literally helping them neurologically rewire their brains in this process. And they have come out with not only a whole new mindset, but they have integrated whole brain thinking. They have forebrain development that allows them to, rather than their amygdala, the fight or flight, area of the midbrain, they have the forebrain taking over as the conscious leader that it's intended to be. And that gives them entirely new perspectives and reactive abilities that really bring out the what's best for everybody, not just for themselves from a fear place. And, the people who go through the higher level programs, the people who want to be high level leaders, bringing out, the best in everybody, they get to a place where rather than thinking and trying to figure something out, they breathe and go into a quiet place and just request that information to come in. In other words, it's a kind of a meta thinking, because it's really trusting an aspect of yourself that's far beyond anything you've ever recognized you were connected with. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, there's so many really cool things you said there. I like you're like literally remapping people's brains. That's totally true. You're giving them new tools to like learn instead of the old standbys
Yeah.
that were causing them fear. And then you said something about like we're not breathing. It made me think of like times when I either get stressed out or like something happens. I literally stop breathing. Like I'm not,
Yeah. I see
because
it
I
all the time. Every day.
every day. Yeah. And that's like when you're like an animal in the woods, right? You're trying to like listen for the predator and you're staying really still and you're not breathing.
Yeah, but that also, and it's a good point to understand that you're doing that so that you can be more in control. You're trying to limit everything and quiet everything down.
That's right.
But the problem is you're shutting off your higher level thinking. There's the primal brain at the top of the spine there, and then there's the midbrain over that, and that's kind of the mammalian brain. But there's chemical gates between this midbrain and the cortex, the left and right hemispheres, and which is your highest thinking. So as soon as you tell your body you're in fight or flight, which is what stopping breathing does, you disconnect or limit those chemical connections, and all of a sudden you've limited your capability of even having the best thoughts that you could have as to what your best next step is. And so you're really putting yourself in more danger, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
and certainly more limited. And so, how can you possibly function by, with a belief system and a reactionary system like that?
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh. Yeah. Ugh. And then you're, rewiring folks their brain. And then it's more like a receiving instead of like I'm pushing out all my great ideas. It's, like all my wonderful great like,
Right.
well, you gotta get, gotta
Get out
receive
of the
the
way.
yeah, you gotta get in there.
Get the heck out of the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the ego that's in the way. That's the trying, that's the mind, that's the efforting, and it's hard. I mean, think in terms of most of the people I'm working with have gone to some amazing school. I've probably walked across the campus of those schools only, but but I mean, they went to Harvard, they went to these amazing schools, and not everybody, but an impressive number. And so that brain got them into those schools. That brain got them that job. But what they don't recognize, and this is research, that will get you so far. But then without greater self-awareness and emotional intelligence, you're going to lose that job. You're going to be, and that's when they come to me, they're going, what happened? I thought I had it all squared away. I thought I had it all figured out. And it's like, no, you had one tool that you used really well. And I want you to save and use that tool, but let's access a tremendous amount of other abilities that you have readily available. But you're going to have to breathe and get out of that head of yours long enough so that you can access and learn to use those tools.
Wow, beautifully said. We can be a whole being instead of just the
Why not?
head.
It's just a concept. I mean,
I
you
like it.
know, yeah, I mean, in breathing, of course, it affects your health and affects,
Mm,
I'm at an age where I can see that it has effects. I mean, I'm 77 and, I can see what happens with other people when they don't breathe and how it affects their body. And they look, it's not even appearances. It's just death and disease come into play, so yeah.
wow. So at, the wonderful age of 77, 30, so many years of meditation practice, what does your sort of day-to-day mindful practice look like for yourself? Yeah,
It gets simpler.
you're right.
It really does.
Great.
The answer to anything and everything is breathe. But the reason you breathe is so that you can come from a place of curiosity. And if you're breathing and coming from a place of curiosity, then you're present. And if you're breathing and you're curious and you're present, then you're also living mindfully. And if you're living mindfully, then you really have access to the best of who and what you are, which is far beyond what the cranial capacity of our brain might give you. This becomes more a receiver than a source of information. But you also, you're just playing on a different level. You're just aware. You know, do I still meditate? Yeah, but sometimes I'm always meditating. I was trimming, I have a lot of Japanese maples on my property, and there's a low one outside my office and dissect them. And I was out there trimming it one day, and I remember halfway through, I was literally halfway through the trimming of this tree, but I was so present that there was no thought. My hands were just moving. There was actually a subconscious thought that I noticed and paid attention to. And so you're not, your mind is quiet.
Mm,
It's scary for other people maybe, but even in this conversation, if I'm not saying something, there's no thought.
mm,
I
mm.
mean, and I'm kind of emphasizing that there's just silence.
Right.
There isn't like, oh my God, what am I going to say next?
Right. Oh, right. Yes. There's just
Or was that okay? Did you like me? No.
exactly all
You
that
know,
chatter. Yeah.
yeah, that
Mm,
chatter, which most people have going on in their mind day in and day out,
yeah.
it's often the same chatter that communicates to their brain that they're in a very frightening, stressful situation.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting, quite
Right.
literally exhausting to the health of the body, to your immune system, to everything. You have to eat more, you have to do something more. You have to, I mean, you hear some people, I call it think speak, whatever they're thinking, they have to speak. In other words, if I don't make my mind noisy, I might endanger myself and have to be present with myself. And being present with himself is the scariest thing they can possibly imagine. You know, I watch a program. It's called Alone. I watch it because my wife likes to watch it.
Right.
It's like, well, if you want to spend time with me, honey, we're gonna, and they have 10 people out in the middle of God knows where, away from everything and everybody. And I, almost across the board, you can watch them. You can watch their mind. It's like, oh, I'm really missing home, or really, well, I'm really worried about my mother. It's like, really,
Right.
you have a doctor in a year, probably, you know, but they literally, the mind just, all of that talk takes over and sabotages them. They make like $500,000 as they win. So it's worth
Not bad.
most of the people who are doing it are in pretty bad shape financially. They, they're, they just can't they don't have any control of their mind. So their mind is run by their ego, and their ego is run by fear, and that fear comes from all of those things that we haven't dealt with. And so we're completely out of control. And that's so difficult to watch, because then
Yeah.
people vote and people live their life and people do relationship and people eat and people.
Like you're compensating with everything
It's
else.
very good. Excellent way to say it. Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
they're doing anything
Yeah.
but the thing they need to do, because that seems so scary.
Oh, yeah. That's funny. Oh, that's funny.
So,
Just like the observation of that show is interesting.
yeah, you can always watch them. They might be out there 30, 40 days, and all of a sudden they'll make a comment and you go, ah, there it is. That's
You're like, I got it.
that's the beginning of the cancer that's going to kick them out. Yeah, that's the little agenda that they haven't dealt with, and that it's gonna subconsciously sabotage their life.
Mm-hmm.
We all do that. We
Oh,
all do
yeah.
that. We sabotage our lives, and it's like so sad, because as humans, we are so incredibly capable. We really are. And I, it's through the transformation that I guide people through, I see the potential is just incredible. And it's right there under that surface. It really is. And if they just would be willing to breathe, if they'd just be willing to breathe and explore, if they'd be willing to access who they are and give
Mm,
themselves that unconditional love that they've wanted all of their life,
right.
then
Yeah. Definitely it would make it such a more beautiful world and everybody can like chill out for a few
we,
moments.
we'd be kind and nice to each other.
Yeah.
We'd have our own opinions and perspectives and all of that. I'm not a political guy, but I think having Republicans and Democrats is a nice, because sometimes I hear Republicans, oh yeah, I see that, and oh yeah, I get that, and
Hmm.
but when they start getting too, fear-based,
Yeah.
uh, then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We're not listening to each other. We're so disconnected within ourselves that it gets, mirrored in a relationship with others, and that level of disconnection continues. Yeah.
Well, so much good insight and knowledge. So I know you've written some books. Is there one in particular where folks should start that you feel is the best place?
Yeah, I glance over.
You're like, they're over there.
That's all. What? Do I have a book? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first one, Overscheduled by Success, the title might throw somebody off, but it really does talk about it. And it's available on Amazon. And it really, I think it'd be extremely valuable for anybody, everybody, because it gives them a perspective of themselves and an understanding of what they're capable of. It begins that journey of
Mm,
that inner awareness, of greater self-awareness. And so yeah, I mean, I have things on my website if anybody wants things, I take them. you know. But there's 9 insightful questions, there's 16 other questions, and people get those and start that begins that inner journey. That begins them going, oh, who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I want to do?
yeah.
What's my highest intention? Which is always a valuable thing to understand, but unfortunately, our fear keeps us from seeing that most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. I like the title because like overscheduling by success. That's like so many people do that all the time. I do that sometimes. I can try to fill my
They never get to do their dream.
no,
They don't have time. I'm
no.
so busy being successful at what I got successful at, but it's just like, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So do you have anything upcoming like projects or events that you would like to let the audience know about?
Um, I'm not sure how to even access it. I'm doing a mastery program on LinkedIn, through LinkedIn.
Oh, cool.
And so, if somebody wanted to reach out through my LinkedIn connection, they could probably get on that. But I'm doing that once a month, and then, I mean, a couple hundred people are supposed to come this month, and we just
Wow.
got started. So it'll be fun. And, I mean, yeah.
Cool. That's
I just had my first post reach 1,000 responses.
wow.
And
That's a lot.
I know that's not not viral or anything like that, but it's like, oh, people are interested. They're paying attention.
Yeah, that's still 1,000 people.
Yeah.
At least,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I,
It's a lot.
joke every morning or evening, I'll go to my wife and go, how many, honey? She goes, well, I don't know. Yeah,
Oh,
but
that's kind of fun.
just, yeah, I spent my life encouraging people to love and accept themselves. And I spent my life helping people get over the fear of doing that. And so any opportunity to do that in any way that I can help somebody do that is what I like to do. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Well, it's such a wonderful life path that you have and such wonderful things that you're sharing with everybody. So yeah, that's amazing.
Thanks.
And yeah, so much luck. You already got like 200 people for your LinkedIn, so many more. Let's, get that going. And we'll definitely have all your links and everything in the show notes as we do.
Mhm.
And you have shared so much wisdom with us already, but is there one piece of wisdom, words of wisdom that you would like to leave us with?
Be willing to breathe. Be willing to be curious. That'll give you a greater access to your heart and your mind. And from that place of breathing, from that place of curiosity, let yourself be present. I know we've heard that from Buddha on or whatever, but it just means let yourself breathe and be with yourself. What am I feeling? What do I want to do? Who do I need to be to do that? In other words, create a life design that brings out the best in you, not as a result of your fear.
Mm. Oh, I love it. Oh, wow. So thank you so much, Dr. Stotts, for being on the show. And yeah, so much wonderful wisdom. Thank you for sharing your story. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Well, I enjoyed it. You were fun. We had a good time. So,
Wonderful. Yes.
yeah, good. All right. So thank you, everybody. I hope there was some insights there for you.
For sure. Your support means the world to us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with others who might find this content valuable. And of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more enlightening discussions. Your engagement helps us grow, and we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for being a part of the Casual Temple community.